It started on a Sunday afternoon, one of those quiet ones that stretch too long, when the house feels too big and every sound lands too loudly. My sister, Eliza, had just left for her work trip, and I'd promised to check on her husband while she was gone. Nothing serious, just a few dinners, some company. She said he'd been off lately. His name's Daniel. 30, maybe 31. Too polite for his own good, the kind of man who always keeps the conversation safe. I used to tease her about that, how she married someone so careful. But that Sunday, when I knocked on their door, the look in his eyes wasn't careful at all. He opened it like he'd been standing there for hours. "Hey," he said, voice rough, like he hadn't used it much that day. "Hey," I answered. "I brought food. Eliza said you might forget to eat." He smiled, a thin one. She would say that. I didn't plan to stay. Just drop off dinner, maybe check if the plants were still alive. But Daniel kept talking. Not about Eliza, not about work, just small things. The kind of small things that sound harmless, but sit heavy in the air. The smell of burnt coffee, the half-open blinds, the sound of rain starting outside. It all made the room feel smaller somehow. He looked tired. Not just physically, there was something else. Something in the way he rubbed his thumb against his wedding ring, over and over, like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. "You ever notice," he said, eyes fixed on the window, "how quiet this place gets when she's gone?" I nodded, though I didn't know what he meant. That silence stretched between us. Not awkward, but uneasy. The kind of silence that makes you aware of every breath. I told him I should go, but he didn't move. Just looked at me. Really looked. "Can you stay for a bit?" It was such a simple question, but it hit something strange in me, a small ache I couldn't name. I sat back down. We didn't talk much after that. The rain got louder. His hand brushed the table, close to mine, not touching, just close enough to notice. When I finally left, it was dark. I told myself it was just loneliness, nothing more. But that night, as I was washing dishes, I realized he'd called me by my name only once. And after that, it was always you. Like the word itself carried too much weight. The next day, he sent me a message. "There's something I need to tell you. It's about your sister." And just like that, everything I thought I understood about them, about us, started to shift. I didn't reply to Daniel's message right away. I stared at it for a long time. The words, "It's about your sister," sitting there like a small wound that refused to close. Eliza and I weren't the kind of sisters who shared everything. We used to be close, really close, when we were younger. But life has a way of loosening bonds you thought were permanent. She got married, moved across town, built a different kind of life. I visited on birthdays, holidays, those polite family weekends where everyone smiles too long. Still, I loved her. And Daniel, well, he was just part of her world. Until now. The next morning, he showed up at my apartment. I hadn't invited him. He stood in the doorway like someone carrying a secret too heavy to hide anymore. "Can we talk?" he said quietly. I let him in because I didn't know what else to do. He looked different in daylight. Paler, maybe, or just tired. His shirt was wrinkled, and he smelled faintly of rain and coffee. "I shouldn't have texted," he started. "It wasn't fair." "Then why did you?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window, pushed the curtain aside, and stared at the street below. "Because I didn't know how else to say it," he said finally. "Eliza isn't who you think she is." The words hung there, heavy, unfinished. I wanted to ask what he meant, but my throat tightened. My mind ran through possibilities. Another man, an illness, a secret from before the marriage. Everything felt possible, and none of it made sense. "Daniel," I said, trying to steady my voice, "if this is about you too, it's not just about us," he cut in. "It's about something she did, something I found." He turned then, and for a brief second, I saw something like fear in his face. Not anger, not guilt, fear. He reached into his pocket, hesitated, then pulled out a small flash drive, silver, unremarkable. He placed it on the table between us. "I shouldn't even have this," he said quietly. "But you need to see what's on it before she comes back." The room felt smaller again. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock, all of it seemed louder. I looked at the flash drive, then back at him. "What's on it?" He swallowed hard. "Just promise me you'll watch it alone." And before I could say another word, he was already at the door. He left without looking back, and I stood there, the flash drive still warm in my hand, wondering what kind of truth could make a man that afraid. The flash drive sat on my kitchen table for 2 days before I touched it. Every time I passed it, something inside me tightened, like even being near it meant crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Eliza called once during that time. Her voice was bright, casual, too light to be real. "You checked it on Daniel, right?" she asked. "He sounded better?" I told her yes, that he was fine, that I hadn't noticed anything strange. Lying to her came easier than I expected. After we hung up, I finally plugged the drive in my laptop. At first, there were just a few folders, old receipts, photos, travel plans. All normal. But then I found one named June. Inside, it was a single video file. No label, just the date. The screen flickered. It was footage from Eliza's office, a security camera, maybe. She was sitting at her desk, talking to someone off-screen. Her tone was sharp, impatient. And then I heard it, Daniel's voice. I froze. They weren't arguing like a couple. It sounded colder, businesslike, detached. He said something about money, about files being missing. She told him to forget it, that it wasn't his problem anymore. The clip ended abruptly. I sat there, staring at the black screen, waiting for the sound to come back. But it didn't. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Did you watch it?" I didn't answer. My hand was shaking too much. He called instead. "There's more," he said. "She lied to both of us." "Both?" I whispered. "What do you mean, both?" There was a pause, long enough for me to hear him breathing. "You'll understand soon," he said. "But please, don't tell her I came to you." Not yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside, a car door, a dog barking, made me flinch. I kept thinking about Eliza's voice in that video. Not the words themselves, but the tone, cold, certain, unfamiliar. I started remembering small things. How she'd stopped talking about work months ago, how she avoided questions about her late nights, and how, the last time we'd had dinner, she'd looked at me for a long moment and said, almost casually, "You trust Daniel, right?" Now, I wasn't sure who I trusted anymore. And as I shut my laptop, a thought I didn't want to have slipped through anyway. What if Daniel wasn't warning me? What if he was using me? By the third night, the silence in my apartment felt alive, like the walls themselves were waiting for me to make a choice. I couldn't stop replaying that video in my head. Eliza's clip tone, Daniel's calm voice, the tension between them that felt practiced. Something wasn't adding up. I decided to go to Eliza's house. I told myself it was just to check on the place, water the plants. But I think I needed to see something, proof that life there was still normal. When I got there, the air smelled faintly of her perfume, lavender and something sharp underneath. The house was spotless as always, except for the study door. It was locked. That door had never been locked before. I stood there, fingers resting on the handle, debating if I should call Daniel. Before I could, my phone buzzed, his name flashing on the screen. "Don't go in there," he said before I even spoke. I froze. "How do you know where I am?" "I just do," he said, voice low. "Please listen to me. You don't understand what she's involved in." "Then tell me." I snapped. "Because right now, it feels like you're the one hiding something." He was silent for a long time. Then, "She's been moving money. A lot of it. From accounts that aren't hers." I stared at the locked door. "You're saying my sister's stealing?" "I'm saying," he said quietly, "that if she finds out you know, she'll turn it on you." Something about his tone made my stomach drop. Not fear, exactly, but a kind of warning only someone close could give. Before I could ask more, the line went dead. I stood in that hallway, phone cold in my hand, the hum of the refrigerator echoing faintly from the kitchen. The air felt heavy, too still. I turned toward the door again. There was a faint light coming from underneath it. Someone had left a lamp on inside. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle again, just to test it. And then I heard it. A sound from the other side. Soft, measured, like the scrape of paper or footsteps stopping too suddenly. I stepped back. That was when I noticed something else, a note taped to the edge of the mirror in the hallway. My name, written in Eliza's handwriting. I tore it open. Just 3 words. I stood there staring at those 3 words like they were burning into the paper. "Don't trust him. Eliza's handwriting, quick, slanted, familiar. She must have written it before leaving town. But why hide it? Why leave it there, taped to the mirror, where I'd only see it if I went snooping? I looked back toward the locked study door. That thin line of light still glowed beneath it. My heart pounded so hard I could feel in my palms. Daniel said she was moving money. Eliza said not to trust him. Both couldn't be telling the truth. I took a shaky breath and went to the kitchen drawer. The spare key, she always kept it there under the stack of takeout menus. My hand hesitated over it, then closed around the cold metal. The lock clicked open with a soft snap that sounded too loud in the quiet. Inside, the study looked untouched at first, her desk perfectly arranged, a few framed photos on the wall. But there was a small safe half hidden behind a stack of books. And next to it, a folder left open on the desk. Receipts, transfers, names I didn't recognize, amounts that didn't make sense. Thousands, tens of thousands. And in the middle, a document with both their signatures. Eliza and Daniel. I didn't hear him come in. I told you not to go in here, Daniel said, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the air. I turned. He was standing in the doorway, eyes dark, unreadable. He looked different, calm but tense. What is this? I asked, holding up the folder. You said she was stealing. But your name is on these too. He stepped closer. It's not what it looks like. Then tell me what it is. He opened his mouth, then stopped, just for a second too long. She was supposed to move the money back, he said. It was a mistake. But then she disappeared, and I didn't know how to fix it without her. I didn't believe him. Not entirely. Why come to me? I asked. Why not the police? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Because it wasn't just her. It was all of us, a project gone wrong. And now there's someone looking for her. My pulse jumped. Someone. He looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper. She's not on that work trip, is she? Before I could speak, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. A message flashed across the screen. You're in danger. Leave the house now. I looked at Daniel, who had gone pale. Who sent that? I asked. He shook his head. It's too late. Outside, headlights swept across the windows, stopping right in front of the house. The headlights outside didn't move. They just stayed there, white beams slicing through the curtains, spilling across the floor. Daniel stepped closer to the window, then froze. That's her car, he said quietly. I felt my stomach drop. Eliza's? He nodded. She wasn't supposed to be back until Thursday. Before either of us could think, a sharp knock echoed through the house. 3 times, slow, deliberate. The kind of knock that carried weight. Daniel looked at me, panic flickering behind his calm. Don't say anything, he whispered. Please. But it was too late. The door opened, and Eliza stepped inside. She looked different. Not exhausted, not angry. Just composed. Her coat was still damp from the rain, her hair pinned up the way she always did when she wanted control. I was hoping you'd both be here, she said, setting her keys on the counter. Makes this easier. My voice came out smaller than I meant. Eliza, what's going on? She glanced at Daniel. You told her, didn't you? He didn't answer. She gave a short, tired laugh, not cruel, but empty. Of course you did. Then tell me the truth, I said. Both of you. Eliza's eyes softened when she looked at me. You always think everything has a truth, she said. But sometimes it's just choices that went wrong. She walked past me to the study, picked up the folder, and flipped it open. These transfers, they were for a project Daniel started. I helped him move the money to cover a mistake at his company. He promised he'd pay it back before anyone noticed. Daniel's jaw clenched. You said we'll be fine. It was, she said, until you panicked. They were talking past each other, the air between them thick with things unsaid. I could barely breathe. Why leave me a note? I asked her. Eliza turned back, her expression breaking for the first time. Because I knew he'd come to you, and I didn't want you dragged into this. The lights outside shifted, another car pulling up behind hers. Dark, quiet, no headlights this time. Eliza saw it too. Her voice dropped. They're not supposed to find us here. Daniel reached for her arm, but she pulled away. I'll fix it, she said. I always do. And she looked at me, really looked, and whispered, whatever happens next, don't believe either of us. The window glass rattled. A shadow moved past it, Eliza's phone buzzed once. One message on the screen: "We know where you hid it." She turned pale. "It's too late," she murmured. And then, before I could ask what it was, the power went out. When the lights went out, everything inside the house fell into silence. No sound from the street. No voices. Just rain tapping against the windows. Daniel reached for his phone's flashlight, but Eliza stopped him. "They'll see," she whispered. Her hand trembled just slightly. For the first time, she looked scared, really scared. "Who are they?" I asked. She hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "People Daniel borrowed from. When the project failed, he thought he could replace the money quietly. I tried to help him fix it before it got worse." Daniel's face tightened. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," she said sharply, then softened again. "Because I knew you couldn't handle the guilt." It hit me then. The fear in both of them wasn't just about money or secrets. It was about what they'd done to protect each other. A noise outside, a car door slamming, broke the moment. Eliza moved quickly, pulling open the drawer near the entryway and taking out a small envelope. She pressed it into my hand. "If anything happens, give this to the police," she said. "It proves what really happened, and it clears you." "Eliza," she smiled faintly, "you were always the good one." The headlights flashed again outside. A second later, the sound of tires against gravel, and then nothing. Whoever was out there, they were gone. When the power finally came back on, Eliza was still standing near the door, her shoulders shaking just enough to notice. Daniel sat on the floor, head in his hands. None of us spoke. By morning, she was gone again. She'd left the house before sunrise, her car missing from the driveway. Daniel said she'd called someone, maybe the police, maybe the people she'd owed. He didn't know. Or maybe he did and couldn't say it aloud. Weeks passed. I gave the envelope to the police like she asked. Inside were copies of transfers and a signed statement with her handwriting at the bottom. Everything was my decision. Daniel was questioned, then released. No charges, no public scandal, just quiet consequences that settled like dust. He moved away soon after. Sometimes late at night, I still replay that last moment. Her voice calm but sad. "You were always the good one." I don't know where she went. I don't know if she's safe. But sometimes when it rains and the house gets too quiet, I find myself watching the streetlights, waiting for headlights that never come. Final note: sometimes the truth doesn't arrive like confession. It lingers in silence, in missing people, in what's left unsaid.